Institute of Peace Studies is a non-profit think tank, aims to provide strength through global peace as well by focusing on innovative research and groundbreaking action research, effective advocacy, dialogue series in the thematic areas of sustainable development, diplomatic studies, public diplomacy, leadership, media and communications, inclusive governance, women, peace and leadership. And the foundation stone was laid down by Professor Johan Galtung, who was the father of peace studies as well. I'm so honored that today I'm joined by Ms. Ayazan, who is PR and mass media consultant, joined also from Kazakhstan. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, the Kazakhstan is spread across the world. It's a place that is having such an ideological linkages, having the cultural rich heritage, and Kazakhstan is also corridors across the world. And Kazakhstan is such a fascinating country, and those people who are living there and those people who are from this region can also share with you that how diverse that regional and geographical that country is. And with such an abundance of backdrop of history and having such a important geographical location, the state of Kazakhstan is all set recently in 2020 to celebrate the anniversaries, important anniversaries of the year. One of this webinar is 1150th anniversary of the Abu Nasr Al-Farabi, and then there is also important anniversary is about 175th anniversary of Abe, as you know, one of the leading philosopher and poet of Kazakhstan. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me warmly welcome everyone here. We are live at Facebook as well. This is also being recorded for the academic purposes, and let me hand over the floor to His Excellency Dr. Imtiaz Qazi, who is Ambassador of Pakistan to Kazakhstan. Ambassador Qazi has not only an ambassador of Pakistan to Kazakhstan, but he's very, literary person, having, always sometimes translates, writes poetic poetic verses as well, and we'll hear from him about Kazakhstan, about relationship between Pakistan and Kazakhstan. And let me give the floor to Ambassador Qazi. Ambassador Qazi, can you hear us? And can you speak? Let me unmute you. Unmute, yes. Yes. Oops. Oops.
Is my voice reaching you there?
Yes, we are all hearing you right and clear. We can see you as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. So can I start?
Yes, of course. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for a very lovely introduction of the great persona of Al-Farabi. Indeed, we in Kazakhstan, I have seen the reverence, the stature, the esteem that this persona enjoys, not only in Kazakhstan, but entire Central Asia, and you know better, and how in Pakistan, in Iran, in Turkey, in the entire Muslim world, in the Middle East, he's a heritage for the entire world. So everybody wants to own him. Everybody wants to associate with him. And I was surprised to see that the city of Faryab, it is a city which has been found in at least 3 Central Asian countries. There is one Faryab, which is, according to Ibn Khallikan, the historian who died in 1282, that Farabi was born in a small village of Vasi. It is today Otrar city in Kazakhstan, in South Kazakhstan. So they own him from that end. But then this Farab in Otrar is on the Ser Darya, Jakhartes River. Then there in Turkmenistan, there is a Turkmenabad city on the Oxus or Amu Darya. That's also Faryab. So they also want to own him from that end. Then there is a Faryab province in Afghanistan, which sometimes they also call Paryab or Pariyab. The water Pariyab, Faryab, which was then modified with the passage of time. So, but in Kazakhstan, the city is now called Otrar. And many people, especially the medieval historian Ibn Khallikan, believe that this person was born in what is now modern Otrar. So let me formally start my speech. I really appreciate, let me appreciate all the efforts that you have personally put in, that Asif Saab has put in, that your team at the Institute of Diplomatic Peace and Diplomatic Studies have continually been putting up. I have still not forgotten the farewell dinner that you had given us, few ambassadors, along with Central Asian ambassadors 2 years ago at Islamabad Club. We really appreciate the endeavors you, your husband, and your team at the Institute and the Center for Asian and Eurasian Studies. I really appreciate this very tiny endeavor. Unfortunately, we have not been able to communicate and do the seminars live and visit personally, but this initiative of yours through webinars, recently you did one on Gwadar also, I really appreciate. So let me also say my salams to all the distinguished webinar participants, to Asif Noor Saab, to other ladies and gentlemen who are around. I'm delighted to participate in this webinar, and I would like to congratulate your team, entire team, in organizing this so beautifully. These forums, am I with you? Hello?
Yes, you are with us, Ambassador Kazi. We're just muting our videos and voice so that we can only hear you.
That's very kind of you. So I'll continue. These forums, in fact, bring the two friendly countries of Pakistan and Kazakhstan further close. These are two countries are bound by ties of common history, culture, and language. Al-Farabi is a symbol of this common history and culture, not only between our two countries, but for the entire region. And the topic is very important, very close to my heart personally. Mr. Farabi, Abul-Farabi, the great philosopher, musician, scientist, he left behind a great legacy for the mankind. Now, he's a source of inspiration for not only Muslim world, but for all the mankind. His 1150th birthday is celebrated in Kazakhstan and around the world, including Pakistan. And I salute again your endeavors, particularly about this. As we all know, he was born 1150 years ago on the Kazakh soil, mostly as believed, and then became an inspiration for not only for Kazakhstan, but the entire world. He was associated with all areas of knowledge, arts, and education. He is well recognized here. Kazakhstan has named its leading university, Kazakh National University, in his honor. And I have the honor of visiting this university, especially before the corona arrived. I used to be at least once a month. I had a visit in Almaty from Nur Sultan, and I was invited there by the Center for Oriental Studies, sometimes for Allama Iqbal Day anniversary, sometimes for other academic endeavors. It has been an honor for me to be visiting that great university of this country. And this is how they have shown their love and respect, the Kazakh people, by naming this biggest university of the country in his name. As known in Al-Farabi as in the West, he contributed to philosophy, logic, sociology, and science. And he was rightly known as the second teacher, Al-Muallama Thani, Aristotle being regarded as the first. Abu Nasr Farabi was born again, I would say, in Turkestan, say around 870, they claim. And he was a man of classical era of Islam, a symbol of the golden age of Islamic culture. He was a scientist, he was a thinker, he was a political philosopher, and his works, interestingly, are very much relevant even today. His major contribution is in logic, philosophy, and sociology. In addition, he contributed immensely to mathematics, science, medicine, and music. He was sort of an encyclopedist. His greatest contribution in logic was that he made the study of logic systematic by dividing the subject into two categories: takhayyul, or idea, and subut, or proof. He tried to reconcile Platonism and Aristotelianism with theology and wrote commentaries on physics, logic, and meteorology. Al-Farabi believed that philosophy and Islam are in harmony. He proved the existence of the void in his contribution to physics. His book, Kitabul Ihsaul Ulum, presents fundamental principles and classification of sciences from a very different and a very fresh perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, he wrote several books. Some claim 125 books, and many of them have survived. They were on sociology, and most famous on sociology was Ara Ahlul Madina al-Fazila, or the model city. That's a very significant contribution to sociology and political science. He also wrote books on metaphysics and psychology that includes his original works. He states that an isolated individual cannot achieve all the perfections by himself and without the aid of many other individuals. So there is a spirit of unity, there is a spirit of unity in diversity, and there is a spirit of alliance, what we call these days civilizations alliances or interfaith harmonies, dialogues, kind of preliminary studies on these topics are also found in his philosophy and psychology. Now, he's expert on music and he contributed to the musical notes and invented several musical instruments himself as well. He could play his instrument so well as to make people laugh or weep at the same time. His famous book on music is Kitab al-Musica, which is very much well known. Again, he wrote a large number in several fields that include original contribution. And of these, 43 books are alone on logic, 7 each on political science and ethics, 11 on metaphysics, 28 books on medicine, sociology, music, and other commentaries. He wrote about philosophy and music and what can be called even chemistry. What now, in those days, chemistry was not in that form what we see today, but it was also his contribution to chemistry is also well regarded and well appreciated, well acknowledged. He was interested in many other affairs of science, which can now be named as psychology and history, but were not separate disciplines in his lifetime. So he was a multidisciplinary persona. He translated again as a translator, coming back. He literature from ancient Greek. In fact, Greek should be thankful to him for saving the medieval from oblivion, their works, greatest works of Aristotle, Plato, and others. His works had a proven influence on Arab scientists and physicians, Avicenna and Maimonides, that great Jewish religious philosopher of the Middle Ages. He was a real man of the world, although he originated from Kazakhstan. He left Kazakhstan at an early age. He spent most of his life in Baghdad. Maybe he moved 942. He moved to Morocco, then went to Egypt. Last couple of years in Damascus, where he died in 950. But he was a man of the world, a real man of the world. A historical reality proven by the fact that he mastered at least several languages as well. Even a legend says that he knew around 70 languages, including Arabic and Persian. So let me conclude with these distinguished scholars. I would like to learn from them about Al-Farabi, and I would conclude that his legacy is our common heritage, which will continue to enlighten the posterity to come. Let me say my thanks and gratitude to Mr. Asif Noor and to the Institute, and personally to you for organizing this wonderful seminar and other academic, literary, trade, cultural endeavors to bringing the region of Central Asia and Pakistan together. I hope that you will continue with your webinars, seminars, and other such activities in future also. I thank you for giving me this opportunity.
It's a pleasure to hear from you, Ambassador Kazi. This was Ambassador Kazi who was speaking from Nur Sultan, and Ambassador Kazi, ambassador of Pakistan to Kazakhstan, and because of his, amazing work there, relationship between Pakistan and Kazakhstan is improving at many folds. So, ladies and gentlemen, my next panelist is Professor Iftihar Malik Saab, who is a fellow of the Royal Historical Society, teaches modern history at Bath Spa University, and is an MCR at Wolfson's College, Oxford, with doctoral and postdoctoral training at the Michigan State, Columbia, and UC Berkeley. He has published 20 books and several research papers on historical subjects. His recent volumes include The Silk Road and Beyond, Narratives of a Muslim Historian. It's published by Oxford University Press, least recently in this year. And he was sharing that, I guess that inauguration is happening today or day after, or maybe at 4 o'clock as he's sharing. Another important book is about Pashtun identity and geopolitics in Southwest Asia, Pakistan and Afghanistan since 9/11, which was also published in 2016, Pakistan, Democracy, Terror, and the Building of a Nation, which is published in 2010, 2010, The History of Pakistan. It was published in 2008. Crescent Between Cross and Star, Muslims in the West After 9/11, again published by Oxford University Press in 2006. His three volumes are focusing on South Asia and published by St. Anthony's series during the 90s, where his Urdu book, Kalam Ke Asar Par, was issued by Emil Books in 2018. Afkhar Saab has lectured at the universities and think tanks in Washington, Cambridge, London, Durham, Berlin, and many parts of the world, including Pakistan. And we are so fortunate that Professor Iftikhar Malik has shared his consent, his precious time to be with us in this occasion. And floor is all your, Dr. Saab, for sharing the insight about Al-Farabi as a scholar. Floor is all yours, Professor Saab.
Okay. Thank you very much, Farad, for a very, very extensive introduction. I feel quite humbled by it. Dear Ambassador Kaziwa, Dr. Anar, Dr. Awan, members of the IDPS, and the fellow participants, Assalamu alaikum from Oxford. It happens to be a sunny, cooler day, and we are discussing one of the most eminent philosophers in world history, not just in Muslim history. I teach in Bath, and Bath has lots of connection with the Muslim world. Of course, Clive, people are talking about demolishing colonial officials. He lived in Bath after he came back from Bengal, from India, and he's considered to be the architect of the British Empire. Bath is World Heritage City, like Khiva, like Samarkand, and it has the honor of one of those people, earliest people who specialized in Muslim philosophy, and especially from Central Asia. Al-Khwarizmi was born in late 11th century, died in early 12th century. He is the man who translated Al-Khwarizmi. He read Farabi, and people think he is the person who introduced zero in England and rest of Europe, and the Arabic numeral. So I did some research on Adilad. Not many people know about him, but he is the first major European scholars to immerse himself into the history, politics, philosophy of the Muslim world. And then I am joined by my friend, Mullah Nasruddin, who is saying hello to you. I collected this Mullah Nasruddin from the historic city of Khiva, where I was last night. It's about Lahore, it's about Fez, it's about Jerusalem, it's about lots of different topics of the Muslim world together. I am going to look at Farabi in a larger context. Initially, I would say a few things about what people Islamic philosophy, and then a few more things. Then I would periodize the different phases in the Muslim history of Muslim philosophy until more recent times, and few more things on Al-Farabi. His books, his works have been mentioned by Ambassador Qazi, but my feeling is that generally, Muslim philosophy, rather than calling it Islamic philosophy, and for a long time it was called Arabic philosophy, which is again slightly a misnomer. Arabic was used for a long time as the medium, but the philosophers came from different parts of the world. They came from Africa, they came from Andalusia, Spain, they came from North Africa, they came from Central Asia, they came from the subcontinent. And of course, we don't know much about philosophers from China or Southeast Asia. So it was a global kind of activity. But Hegel, the famous German philosopher, he believed that there was no such thing as Islamic philosophy. And some other Orientalists believed in the early 19th century that maybe Islamic philosophy was just a retranslation or reconstruction of Greek philosophy. So for a long time, Islamic philosophy or Muslim philosophy was not really acknowledged, even by Muslims. But I think we got to give credit to people like Farabi, and slightly before him to Al-Kindi and to Al-Razi, because these are the pioneers of establishing the traditions of Muslim philosophy. So the early period in Muslim philosophy is Rashidun, the pious caliphate. The Umayyads were more interested in expanding and consolidating the empire. So we don't see philosophical debate. There is more emphasis on empire building, and that is how the Muslim empires reached Central Asia and Indus Valley and and Spain and Portugal. It was during the time of the Abbasid. So this classical period involves the end of the Umayyad period and generally the Abbasid period. And remember, Abbasid period is the time when the famous battle was fought in Kazakhstan, 751, the Battle of Talash. And this is where the Chinese were defeated. And the Central Asians and the Arabs, the Persian Muslims, they were all joined by the Tibetans. So Tibetans were on the side of Muslims. And this was the first major battle against the Chinese in which China defeated. And this is a separate topic. We could talk about it, how paper industry came into the Muslim world and, how the Silk Road was opened up and how these regions, became accessible to Muslim literary and mystical figures. So during the Abbasid period in 750, we see lots of violence against the Umayyads, and that's how Abdurrahman fled from Damascus and ended up in Cordoba, and then you have a caliphate in Spain. So there are three caliphates actually. One is in Spain, the Umayyad Caliphate. One is our caliphate in slightly later in Cairo, and then you have the Abbasid Caliphate. But there were questions during this. Questions were raised by the Jewish scholars, by Christian scholars, by Zoroastrian scholars. So Muslims had to come up with the ideas about soul, ideas about God, ideas about the purpose of the world, the purpose of human life, what happens to human life, human existence eventually after you die. Is there any existence there? What's the relationship between aql, wisdom, intellect, and knowledge, and faith, theology? So these were the questions which were raised mostly in Syria and in Iraq by Christian and Jewish writers and intellectuals. They were not being negative. I think this was a challenge which was confronted. People like Farabi and Razi and others in this pioneering generation made their contribution. And Farabi's own teachers were actually Christian, and some of his students later on in Damascus and Aleppo. So this is very important to remember what were the motivating factors behind this pioneering tradition of Muslim philosophy in the early period. During the second period, classical period, we find people like Avicenna, who was a student of Farabi. In Bukhara, I went to, I spent 2 weeks there, and I would go to Ark, the fort, the Killa, and that had a huge library during that time. Avicenna were contemporaries, and they used to study. The Sultan had opened up this library in the Ark to these two young Central Asians, and they used to compete with each other. And Ibn Sina says that he read Aristotle 42 times, was able to understand Aristotle and his metaphysics. So you could see that how, the second phase philosophy owes the efforts which were made by people like Farabi in the early period. And during this period, other than Al-Biruni, and where you're sitting, most of you sitting, this is where Al-Biruni lived, in Salt Range, Nandana. And he wrote his classic, which is still a classic, called Kitabul Hind. And he came from a town called Baroun, which is between Bukhara and Khiva. And Avicenna went west to Hamadan. And so they both were students of Farabi, and they benefited from what Farabi had written in all different fields. This period, slightly before that, this debate about, the Qadar and Jabr, the Mu'tazili debate, is also happening when Farabi is, developing his philosophical thoughts. And those thoughts between the Mu'tazilis and Mutakallim is supremacy of reason and eternity or soul, while the Mutakallimun, the theologians, believed in everything having been predetermined, predestined. So they believed in Jabr. And the rationalists or Mu'tazilis believed in qadar. So when we talk about Muslim philosophy, this is a great debate. It goes on even today. So Farabi and Al-Biruni confronted this debate. The third phase is after the Mongols. The Mongol invasion, which came from Central Asia, destroyed all these historic cities: Samarkand, Bukhara, Khiva, Balkh, Mar. Mar was one of the most fascinating cities of the medieval period. And during this period, there were new challenges: survival, reinterpretation of Islam, reinterpretation of Islamic discourses, and this re-emergence of this debate between the mutakallimun and the philosophers, the theologians and philosophers. And this is where we see people like people like Ibn Taymiyyah, who was, I mean, many people fundamentalism or Wahhabism or whatever, they don't understand him. I mean, they should read Yahya Misho, who was great authority. Ibn Taymiyyah was influenced by Farabi, and he was a student of Farabi. He was influenced by Avicenna. And before that, of course, Ghazali. People think Ghazali is the main architect of Ash'ari, the consensus, which stopped Tanqid. But Ghazali himself had been a philosopher. He had been a student of Farabi. He had been influenced by Avicenna, though he challenged Avicenna. But this second phase, this third phase, rather, I would say, after the Mongols, it shakes up Muslims. And in Spain, crusades from the north, crusades are happening all across the Middle East. But in Spain, there is a crusade to kick the Muslims out. And this is where Ibn Rushd and Maimonides, the most famous Jewish philosopher of classical period, read people like Farabi, read people like Avicenna, read people like Al-Ghazali, and people like Muhyiddin Ibn al-Arabi. So this debate, we should not forget, is taking place at different places. And then comes the fourth or fifth phase in the history of Muslim philosophy, and that is the Mughal period, the Safavid period, and the Ottoman period in these three main empires. And then you have the Uzbek Empire in Central Asia, and there are sultanates all around. During this period, generally the Europeans, the Orientalists, believed that maybe Muslim philosophy stopped. Ash'aris carried the day, consensus, taqlid, no tanqid. So Muslim philosophy became frozen. But now the recent researches by Sayyid Hussain Nasr and several other people, they show that there's quite a bit of philosophical debate. And one of the most famous philosophers during this time from Shiraz, who had been student, who reinterpreted Avicenna, who reinterpreted Farabi. And then Mullah Sadra had his influence all the way until Qachar period. And the fifth and the final phase is more modern, when Western colonialism, Western philosophical thoughts, they challenge, their counterparts from the Muslim world, from China, Japan, Africa. And during this time, I think in India, for example, people think Shah Waliullah, was one of those people who started, debating these issues. And then Sayyid Ahmad Khan in the 19th century, and Sayyid Jamaluddin Afghani, and Jamaluddin Afghani's student in Egypt, Abduhu, and in more recent time, Allama Muhammad Iqbal. So these are the people of this fifth generation or fifth period of Muslim philosophical history. And then more recently, you could include Bush. Some people may not like it, but Dr. Fazlur Rahman being revisited, being restudied. So this is my early, submission in reference to Farabi, that we see Farabi in the larger context of Muslim philosophy, who influenced people like Mawardi, who was a great poet, who was a Persian, and he was a rebel poet, and he was very popular. Dante, the Divine Comedy, was influenced by Mawardi. And then we had Umar Khayyam, and Umar Khayyam tried to build a link between Muslim philosophy and Zoroastrian, traditions. So I think Farabi, that's why Farabi was called the second master, Muallim al-Sani by Ibn Khaldun. And so I think that the contributions that Farabi made, I think, are very important. He was interested generally, I mean, it's still very Eurocentric. People start with the Greek philosophers, Aristotle, Plato, and others. And then there is a period when Greek philosophy shifts to Egypt after Alexander has captured this area. He built the empire. It's called the Hellenistic period. The first period is called Hellenic. The second period is called Hellenistic. This is the period it begins with Alexander. And Alexander founds the city of Alexandria. Actually, there was a city already called Alexandria or something else. But Alexandria becomes the city of philosophical debate. And this is where Aristotle and Plato and several others all, discovered by academic and scholars. And during that period, early Christian period rather, there was a great philosopher, Plotinus, Plotinus. So if you get a chance, do read him. Plotinus is considered to be the founder of New Platonism, which is re-understanding the Hellenic philosophy in changing times and bringing some element of religion into it. Because by that time you have Christianity, you have Judaism, and these are Abrahamic traditions in early Christian period, which are interacting in Alexandria with the Greek philosophy. So Hellenistic period brings in, and then the Romans come in, and the Romans try to impose, after the Romans become Christian, they try to impose Christian thinking. And that's why, the ancient Greek philosophy and philosophical interface with Christian beliefs. And this is how cities like Damascus, Antioch, Haran, they became the center of, intellectual debate. So no wonder Farabi, who was born in present-day Kazakhstan, leaves this place, comes to Baghdad, but then from Baghdad he moves to Damascus, because that is where, the debates are happening. And then he spends time in Aleppo. And this is the city, Aleppo. If you remember my early remarks, that Abelard, this philosopher from late 11th century, Bath in England, learned Arabic. And he's the man who translated some of these people, especially Al-Khwarizmi. And that's how we got the word algorithm in English, and zero, and Arabic numeral. So this is something where Syria becomes the center of philosophical debate. So it doesn't surprise us that Farabi is spending his time in Syria. And that is where his initial life was very tough. He was a gardener, and he used to read. I mean, Sayyid Hussain Nasr says that he used to read during the night, in the light which was provided by a night watchman. But then his books came out, he became a very well-known figure, and then the ruler of Aleppo, Hamadan, he became his patron. So financial worries were taken care of. And he had scholars, Jewish students, Muslim students, and Christian students. So this is the flourishing of Farabi in Damascus and Aleppo. And that's where sadly passed away. Now his ambassador has mentioned his works. I think he was trying to marry. He feels that every language has grammar, has its own temperament, and logic is beyond that. But logic needs grammar for its own vocabulary, for its own communication. So I think his emphasis that I find very important in those early years is to link up language with logic, with philosophy. He expanded the works of Plotinus, New Platonism. Now, this term has been used off and on. Even in the 19th century, it became very popular again. How to reinterpret Plato, in other words, how to reinterpret Hellenic, philosophy and teachings. His book, Kitab al-Huruf, and the other book, Kitab al-Alfaz, there are several books, but these two books basically focus on grammar and logic. He was also confronted with this problem that intellectual problem or intellectual challenge that I already mentioned, relationship between theology, deen, philosophy, aql, wisdom, and mysticism. Because during the second phase that I mentioned, something new happens in the Muslim world. On one hand, you've got philosophers, and then you've got mystics, Sufis. And Sufi Bar Yazid, and later on Hallaj, and in the subcontinent, we have Data Ganj Bakhsh, who wrote one of the earliest books on Sufism, 1020, Kashf al-Majub. in Arabic. So how to relate these three trajectories within the Islamic context? Theology, philosophy, and mysticism. Taqallam or kalam, which is theology, falsafa, and then the soul. And Farabi challenged it. Now, Farabi took it as a challenge. So his works, many works, move around these three areas. Sayyid Hussain Nasr feels that he was a Sufi. But Majid Fakhri, Peter Adamson, some other specialists on Muslim philosophy, they believe that he was not very happy with what Hallaj, Bistami, and other Sufis were presented. So he thought that philosophers, mysticism, Muslim mysticism, was teaching asceticism rather than confronting life and trying to find answers to all kinds of tough questions. But anyway, he is more into what we call practical politics. I think he was the first Muslim political philosopher. We could say that. Why was he talking about politics? Because Abbasi Empire was in decline. Muslim rulers are fighting among themselves, sadly, as it is today in the Middle East. And Muslims were in a deep trouble, and there were new threats coming up from Europe, elsewhere. So this is the time when Farabi writes, his famous The Virtuous City, Madinat al-Fadila, and Kitab al-Siyasat. So long before Machiavelli or long before St. Augustine, City of God, Farabi is raising these issues. He says the reason behind any government, any state, any polity is happiness, what he calls sa'ada. The purpose of a government is to bring sa'ada, happiness, peace to the people. So these people develop a kind of nostalgia for early period. Abbasid losing momentum, losing vigor, and Muslim rulers are balkanized. Muslim regions are balkanized. So this is where I think he emerges as the founder of political philosophy in the Muslim world. Some people think he offered not just the ideas, but also practical philosophy, practical political philosophy. But he's not comfortable with the terms. I mean, like, for example, he's not comfortable with the term aql. He thinks wisdom or intellect should not be seen as aql. It should be seen as mantak. He preferred the word mantak. This is a man whose mother tongue was not Arabic, by the way. He learned Arabic and look, what he's writing in classical Arabic. And he gives different categories of aql, mantak, and how eventually this intellect becomes the soul. Maybe Allama Iqbal, when he writes about Insan-e Kamil, completion of a human being, that is something which Farabi was talking about. That intellect, the development and the progress of human intellect eventually takes one to that kamal, to that ultimate completion, perfection, where human being becomes a soul. And this was where he challenged the orthodoxy, the mutakallimun. This whole concept of Jannah and Jahannam, which they had reduced to reward and punishment. He said, no. When human beings become, reach that stage of aql, of intellect, of wisdom, of mantak, they become souls, they become happy. These worldly things become very insignificant for him. And that was the real heaven, for him. So this is very important. And as I said, that his influence is permeating, and his influence is there on not just on Ibn Sina, but also on Ibn Taymiyyah. And Ibn Taymiyyah was a great theologian. And we know that, he's known more as a theologian than a philosopher. I will end just by saying that when I was in Bukhara and, spending some time there, I remembered Biruni, and I remembered Avicenna. Now, Avicenna was taught in Europe until 16th and 17th century. Ibn Rushd was taught here. There is more interest in Ibn Rushd and Ibn Sina now in Europe in the 21st century. But this interest ended in about 17th century and onwards, so nobody knew. But when I was in Bukhara, I thought about these two great luminaries and class fellows. One went to the subcontinent, wrote Kitabul Hind, Al-Biruni, and one goes west to Hamadan, Ibn Sina. Both had difficult relationship with the political government. Al-Biruni was not very happy with Mahmud Ghazni. Al-Biruni was an independent scholar. He learned Sanskrit. He wrote this book, history, anthropology, geography, science, maths, all put together, called Kitabul Hind, when he was based in the Salt Range in Potwar, in Nandana. Bruce Lawrence, a great scholar of Muslim history and philosophy who lives in Carolina in America, he feels that Al-Biruni was a greater scholar than Avicenna. But generally people, believe, scholars believe that Avicenna was more preeminent than Biruni. And both of them are the beneficiaries of Farabi. I'm very happy to organize this session. We should talk about these intellectual, cultural, scholarly, and academic things, because we generally end up talking only about security-related issues, and we reduce societies, countries, communities, only to security-related relationships. I think there's lots of mutuality, and I do hope that you would organize functions on a similar kind of discussion on Gohar Shah, the daughter-in-law of Tamerlane, who established some of the pioneering institutions for women in Afghanistan, in Herat. And she was a great scholar. Maybe you will have a session on Mir Ali Shernawai, who is the national poet and hero and academic in Uzbekistan, who introduced Turkish language. After Persian, Turkish language emerged with Mir Ali Shernawai, the language which Zahiruddin Babur used in India. And I do hope that this scholarly interest in places to our north will multiply, and with the efforts by the ambassador and with our Kazakh colleagues from the universities and centers like yours, you would diversify your interest, not keeping it just confined to trade, diplomatic, and security relationships, because there are so many dynamics. I mean, even looking at, when I was in Bukhara, I went to the tomb of Sheikh Bahauddin Naqshband. And Sheikh Bahauddin Naqshband was one of those 35 senior mentors of Sufism. So Central Asia has influenced the Muslim world, not only through people like Farabi or Ibn Sina or Al-Biruni or Al-Khwarizmi. It has influenced all of us through the mystical literature, whether you India or or Iran, and also intellectually, we have been influenced. And then there have been migrations both ways, from the subcontinent to Central Asia. Buddhism, of course, Gandhara, which was the center of Buddhism, this region, which is northern Pakistan, was the center of Buddhism. It went from here to Tibet. So no wonder these Buddhists in Tibet were helping the Muslims fight the Chinese at the Battle of Talash in 751. And also there's a Ismaili connection. And then before that, it was a Zoroastrian connection. So I think our region, this Indus Valley, has been the center of lots of cross-cultural, cross-intellectual, cross-philosophical ingredients and cross-skills. And this is acknowledged, because that is how we will preserve our own pluralism in a country like Pakistan. But thank you very much for your attention.
Oh my God! Thank you so much, Dr. Saab, to Al-Farabi, and Dr. Iftihar Malik, Historical Society, teaches modern history at Bath University. I mean, you had deeply and in a very beautiful manner put excellent light on the life of a great Muslim philosopher, and we echo what you said about putting not only sessions like these, but we always envision when we were establishing the Center for Central Asian Eurasian Studies, we always had envisioned, and Qazi Saab is witness to what our love is for this region and beyond, is that we always consider light. But people say that light descends from this part of the world to the world because of the philosophers and thinkers like Al-Farabi. it has given light to the rest of the world for what is shared by Dr. Malik, and will continue to do so with the wisdom and insight from as philosophers and professors like yourself. Will continue building these kind of intellect and igniting a lot of conversation with our young people who are looking for finding insights on these lives of these people, and especially when they had actually built the base for us to understand what is world political philosophy, theology, and wisdom, and many other related to that. Thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for your kind remarks as well and insight. I hope that the students webinar who are listening at the Facebook right now, they will definitely be hearing you, learn from you, and of course, this academic discussion will continue. Ladies and gentlemen, just as a small note, Dr. Sajid Mahmood Awansa, who was supposed to be with us, who is the director of National Institute of Historical and Cultural, because yesterday his mother had a short paralysis attack on her, and she's in had to be with her. Now I would like to request our worthy panelist from Kazakhstan, Dr. Tanabayiba Anar, who is the Director of International Cooperation at the Department by Kazakh National University. Dr. Tana Baiba will be presenting her, presentation and conversation. Let me share the screen so that we can, go ahead with it. I hope everybody can see the screen. Mm-hmm. Yes, Dr. Tana Baiva, the floor is all yours. And you have to tell me when I have to go move another slide, right?
Okay, thank you so much.
Floor is all yours, madam.
Okay, good day, dear participants. I'm really glad to see you here. And today I would like to show you our presentation, Al-Farabi's Turkic Code. So next slide, please. So as you know, I work for Abay Kazakh National Pedagogical University. So it is very important for us to understand what kind of medieval ages Islamic culture we can use for the improving our society. It is a country or for one civilization. It is also for all generations. Next slide, please. As you can see, our university here, social political thinker among the Arab philosophers paid great importance to human nature, the meaning of human life, man's place in the universe, his role in society, nature of society, is still relevant in the modern era of globalization. The high research interest of scientists from around the world to the works of the great philosopher can be explained by the fact that his concepts of the ideal society, virtuous city, and perfect man are unique. And in this regard, I just would like to show our Al-Farabi's legacy. And we know that ideal society is not only for the East, also for the West. And we know that great thinkers' legacy to the European culture. And still we cannot study it. We couldn't study it deeply, all his works. And the main questions which to become a good man, what are the main qualities that can make people better? How can the society become virtuous? All these questions were important for Al-Farabi. He tried to find answers to these questions, developed concepts of the ideal society and perfect man, and created a great number of scientific works. And according to Dunlop, Al-Farabi was Turkish, or perhaps both Turkish and Persian, and his name comes from Farab, a town on the Jaxartes, Sayhun, Sirdarya. At young age, he moved to Baghdad. At this time, apart from Byzantium, perhaps it was the only city in the world for the study of the Aristotelian philosophy. And of course, we know that Al-Farabi was acquainted with a wide range of Greek philosophy. And as we know, many thinkers and researchers thought about where he was born. And we know that he was born in Central Asia. But many years it was a big discussion. But the main idea was that to understand how Al-Farabi could manage to be so great philosopher. It was, I think, the main question. And we know that according Henry Corbin, in medieval West, Al-Farabi was awarded the honorary title of the Magister Secundus. So the first one, Magister Primus, was Aristoteles. And we know that he was second master. Next, please. And we know that Aghjan al-Moshani, one of the first Kazakh scientists studying Al-Farabi's works, proved that Al-Farabi was born in Kazakhstan, in the Farab district in southern Kazakhstan, because it was by making a historical review of the Farab city, Otrar. We can see that on the territory of Kazakhstan, in ancient times, tribal unions were formed. They were Massagets, Saks, Huns, Usuns, and other peoples lived there. And of course, there are unique material related to the Great Silk Road, which is of the great interest in the world today. As it is known, in the Middle Ages, the Great Silk Road was a system of caravan roads crossing Eurasia from the Mediterranean to China, became an important road for establishing contacts, exchange links, and dialogue between Eastern and Western cultures. One of the most extended part of this road passed through the territory of Central Asia and Kazakhstan. According to the description of the father of history, Herodotus, functioning of the steppe road dates from the first millennium BC. 6th, 7th centuries are considered the most important when the road went from China to the west through the Semirechye and southern Kazakhstan. And on the way of the caravans, there were villages and cities, Mirke, Bukhara, Samarkand, Shash, and Urgench, Otrar. So Otrar was earlier Farab, Taras, Balasagun, Sayram, Almalik. And there were in written sources. And the description of Otrar by the Mongols in 1218, 1219 was called the Otrar catastrophe. And the main, one second, please. One second, please. And the main idea here, I just would like to note that in these sources, there is another name of the city Farab. And there is a tribal legend of the Otrar library, which was the second library upon the number of books after the famous library of Alexandria. Okay, thank you so much. Next one. So the main idea that on the territory of ancient Kazakhstan, there were remains of a huge feudal state, Turkic Khanate. And we know that Turkic Khanate was neighboring with China, and of course they tried to be very strong Khanate. And the city was initially called Otrar, not Farab. I talked about that. And the information about Farab is found in the work of Abu Abbas al-Balasuri in 893, Kitab Futuh al-Buldan, Book of the Conquests of the Lands. And we know that in Kazakhstan, the most ancient writing artifact is a silver cup with 26 runic signs made in the Issyk Barrow, excavated by Mr. Akishev in 1969-1970. And next one. And this city, Otrar, was also studied by archaeologists of Kazakhstan, Mr. Akish. We know that the Turkic writing was first discovered in the valley of the Yenisei River. And we know that these documents, these writings were named Orkhon Yenisei. And we know that first first time, a Danish scientist, linguist, philologist, historian, Scandinavian scientist upon his major field of study, William Thomson, was the first in the world who read the words Turk and Tengri in these runic texts. It was in 1893. Next slide. And of course, the ancient Turkic runic writing reflects the Turkic ideology and provides a concept of centralized state as a guarantee of freedom and independence of Turkic peoples, who had a common history and a common culture of origin for centuries. This culture has become their common heritage. It reflects the strong will of the Turkish people towards such sacred notions as nation, state, freedom, independence. And the main idea was freedom, justice. And one of the main problems which was studied and studied by Al-Farabi was problem of the perfect man. Of course, this problem is one of the relevant questions for all countries, I think, in the world, because every people accept perfect person. But how to be a perfect person? Al-Farabi contains a conceptual vision of the Eastern problem of peripatetism, of the perfect man on the basis of knowledge. In the center of philosophy of Al-Farabi's system, there is a theme of man, his intellectual and moral perfection, and his desire to achieve freedom, personal and public happiness, the search for the better future, issues of origin and the functioning of human society, the state, its types, forms of governments, location and the role of law, the principle of virtuous government organizations, and the necessary qualities and properties of man as a political leader. So, according to Majid Fakhri, Al-Farabi belonged to the second generation of Islamic philosophers, and he must be recognized as an actual founder of Islamic Neoplatonism. Okay, next one. And his work, The Residence of Virtual City, shows that Al-Farabi considered the understanding of a man as a spiritual and physical unity from the point of view of the theory of the perfect man. And Al-Farabi wanted to create the ideal state, ideal society. And every person being perfect can make this society better, can make be kind, and he can love, he can use his wisdom, ethical virtues, justice, and of course, intelligence. And in this regard, the main goal of the perfect human life is worthy preparation for meeting with first being. And Al-Farabi understood the perfection of a man as the improvement of his nature, first of all, his moral qualities. The task of a man is to follow the ethical principles provided by God, to follow the principle governing everything in the world, since the world is built on a single divine plan. According to Al-Farabi, the existence of the first being is perfect and precedes everything else in life, which in his creation. Next one, please. And we need to mention that a researcher, the translator Akjan Mashani, was one of the organizers of the research of Al-Farabi's legacy in Kazakhstan. And in 1968, the creative team of research of Al-Farabi's legacy was created at the Institute of Philosophy and Law of the Academy of Sciences of the Kazakh SSR. Its organizer was a member of the National Academy of Sciences, Doctor of Philosophy, Professor Agan Kasimzhanov. And today we know that nowadays famous Kazakhstan scientists, Dr. Kurmanalieva, Dr. Nasanbayev, Dr. Koyenbayeva, Dr. Kenisarin, Dr. Sitakhmetova, Dr. Tadjikova, Dr. Kurmanalieva, Dr. Altaev, and many others continue to study Al-Farabi's works. Mhm. And in conclusion, I just would like to mention that a great interest in the social, political, and moral issues is an essential feature of Al-Farabi's philosophy. And his social concept, based on the ancient traditions of rationalism, recognized that human society and should implement this as on common sense, the moral source in man, the principle of justice, based on moral values form the basis. And Al-Farabi's legacy is considered as a spiritual and moral support of modern culture of Kazakhstan. And from modern relevance of the legacy of Al-Farabi, I just would like to add the most important note that the concepts of UNESCO global citizenship today is very close to the principles of Al-Farabi, because when we compare them, we can see that global citizenship is that perfect man of Al-Farabi, who wanted to see in every person, despite where he is located or live. And I think nowadays we know the definition of global civilization, global concept of internationalization. All these global definitions are based on the main idea to make people happier and to be a real part of ideal society, and of course to make our life better. And this concept is based on the moral virtues as kindness, love, and of course friendship. Thank you so much, and I think it is enough. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This was Dr. Tana Waiba Anar, who is the Director of International Cooperation Department of International Cooperation Department, Abai Kazakh National University. Thank you so much for your wonderful insight from Kazakhstan. We learned something from more insights from Kazakh, especially with your own university and the work that many Kazakh professors and doctors and researchers has have done so far over the years about I would like to request Miss Aizen Koshanaiva, who is the PR and mass media consultant based in Kazakhstan, to share her views. And ladies and gentlemen, the floor is all hers. Miss Aizen, can you hear us?
Yes, same here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Now,
so much for joining us. Floor is all yours, Miss Aizen.
yeah, here. And can I ask? Can I
Hey, happy
start?
birthday. Happy birthday to you as
Thank
well.
you. Thank you very much.
Yes, and happy birthday to you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Yes,
very
you can
much.
go ahead with your presentation.
Dear Excellency, dear ladies, gentlemen, and firstly, I would like to express my gratitude for this invitation for this webinar on work Al-Farabi. This year was marked by the celebration of 1115th anniversary of the great scientist and the philosopher and the space in the State Commission of Kazakhstan for the Jubilee has developed a plan that includes more than 50 events in Kazakhstan. The topics cover educational, scientific, cultural centers, museum, libraries of the country. There are a lot of publications in Kazakh mass media. And I have worked for some international projects on develop civil service system in Kazakhstan. And today I would like to focus just one issue. Al-Farabi is one of the great thinkers and theorists of development of public administration. In my opinion, it's interesting that in his concept of state development lies values, spiritual values. For example, a public manager should be honest, virtuous, and the residents should be happy. His Al-Farabi's philosophy and the concept of building a state differ from Western philosophy in its humanity. In his according to principles of the opinion of the citizens of virtuous city, if the person who runs the city meets the 12 known requirements, the population of the city would be happy. And if the population of all cities are happy, the whole country would be happy. If one country is happy, then all the countries of the world would be happy. In this way, the whole world would be blessed. If one city or state is not happy, and the countries don't support each other in difficult situations, then neither countries nor peoples will be able to achieve happiness. Today, during the coronavirus pandemic, this philosophy or this concept of Al-Farabi is, I think, especially relevant because countries should provide each other humanitarian assistance and the support so that can overcome the global crisis. But happiness, according to Al-Farabi, is a deeper and a more extensive concept. Happiness to Al-Farabi is the absolute good. Achieving happiness is the purpose of life. Al-Farabi makes happiness the reason of human existence. He expressly states that God created us to achieve happiness, the ultimate perfection. To Al-Farabi, anything that helps a person achieve happiness is good, and anything that obstructs of the person from achieving happiness is evil. It's my just a short speech for this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ezan, for your remarks. I think that on birthday you can also enjoy and learn and experience and practice what Al-Farabi has been teaching us as young youth, workers and students and faculty members across the world. Thank you so much, Ezan. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know that. For several years, the knowledge and wisdom of Al-Farabi has not only influenced the region of his origin, but also has triggered renaissance across the world. Over the years, Al-Farabi has also become the source of knowledge, bridge between East and West, and inspires the pursuits of innovative literature, research, and philosophies and understanding across the world. And works of Al-Farabi has also been translated in different languages, as our panelists has also shared. And as a result of Kazakhstan as being here to the glorious life of and letters of Al-Farabi, and to honor him, Kazakhstan has also established this Kazakhstan National University, which was named and renamed after him as Al-Farabi Kazakh National University. And ladies and gentlemen, because of because of his work and because of his, as we are Kazakhstan is celebrating this 150th anniversary of this Oriental thinker Abul Nasr al-Farabi. During this year, Kazakhstan has also, to recognize the modern heroes of Kazakhstan, where a list of 100 new faces. It's not only that we have this legacy of Al-Farabi, but they are also encouraging the young people to be the next Al-Farabis, right? So they are also acknowledging those 100 new faces as 100 new people and recognizes them as modern, so that knowledge and acknowledge their the young people and talent and leadership of the national and international levels of these Kazakh heroes who are working at the building the state as Kazakhstan is at the world stage today. I'm so honored that today I've been joined by for this webinar that we as a humble contribution of us in promoting the life and letters of Al-Farabi, and we are honored. And I'm so honored that today Dr. Imtiaz Qadi Saab has joined us from Nur Sultan, Ambassador of Pakistan to Kazakhstan. Thank you so much for sharing the deep history, your own wisdom, and your own insight in promoting Pakistan-Kazakhstan relation is commendable. We always feel so proud of you while you're working there as an ambassador to that country. Professor Dr. Iftikhar Malisa, your insights as well as Malik Saab was also was sharing that today his book on title is The Silk Road and Beyond Narratives of a Muslim Historian is also been inaugurating in there. Congratulate you for producing such an important book as well, and we congratulate you for hosting this launch there in UK as well, and we wish you best of luck for that. Thank you so much. Dr. Sajid Avansa could not make it, however, for the health of his mother, as good men, as perfect men, we always, as we were sharing, because of him, understanding Al-Farabi so much, and of course is or not only in Central Asia but across South Asia, we have this practice of caring for our parents so much. So Dr. Sajid Aman could not make it, but he's looking after his mother. Dr. Tana Baiva Anar, coming from Kazakhstan, and perspective from a view from Kazakh, and of course your own research on Al-Farabi is commendable. Thank you so much, and continue doing that. We'll continue arranging these kind of seminars. And Aizen, thank you so much again, who is a PR and mass media consultant. But again, happy birthday to you, and then continue doing the amazing work that you are doing. Ladies and gentlemen, all these work that we do, we acknowledge these services of Al-Farabi or all those philosopher of Muslim world. We, as Dr. Iftihar Malik Sahab has said, we will continue doing these kind of conversations to revisit the philosophies, revisit the philosophies and works of those philosophers and thinkers of the Muslim world, but not only Muslim world, but across the world as well, so that we can learn from their experiences, and with their help, with their wisdom, which is beyond time and space, we can, resolve and find solution to all the challenges that we are facing today. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Those who are there in the webinar right now, and those who are in Facebook, thank you much again. Let us.
One note. Is it possible to say one note? Thank you
Yes,
so much.
please go ahead. Please go ahead if you want to.
His Excellency Mr. Qazi, good day also, and Dr. Malik, and it would be so great if we could share our emails, of course, because you know that I work for by Kazakh National Pedagogical University, and we have a great interest to be partners. And in this regard, get my congratulations, and I hope Institute will provide us your email address. And Ajahn, I would like to congratulate you with your happy birthday. All the best. And to the center.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just would like to wish just prosperity and thank you for the organization of this event. And from our university, we are planning to also, according to Al-Farabi's University, Al-Farabi's anniversary, and university will invite you to this kind of event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, definitely. Qazi Sahab, you want to say something? You raise hand. Ambassador Qazi Sahab, you would like to say something? And Dr. Malik Sahab? Again then.
Thank you, Farhat. It was indeed a great learning, very informative, very enlightening to hear Professor Iftikhar Malik, to hear from Dr. Anar, indeed, and Ms. Kushkunyova. I look forward to meet our Kazakh speakers, distinguished speakers, during my next visit sometime in Almaty. And I can also share that we had also planned some events about Al-Farabi and Allama Iqbal at the Farabi National University, Kazakh National University, at a newly established center in the name of Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Last year, we established a new center at Al-Farabi National University, the first ever in Kazakhstan. And it was inaugurated by our Federal Minister for Power, Umar Ayub. And we had planned some events, but because of the corona, we had to delay it in the second half now. And I look forward that we'll continue our academic discussions and deliberations, both in Pakistan and in Kazakhstan. And I would also endorse Dr. Malik's view that, like Madam Gohar Shah, the great lady of those times who had established those discussions on these themes and topics about literary figures. And also you mentioned about the new 100 persona of the modern Kazakhstan. We need to promote each other's people, each other's folk heritage, each other's culture and historic ties in the desert. I once again appreciate all the efforts and contributions by all of you. Thank you so much and wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saab. Thank you so much, Ambassador Saab. Iftihar Malik Saab, you want to share something?
Oh, I just want to thank everybody, thank your organization. One thing that I forgot to mention in my presentation was that Al-Farabi believed in the equality of gender. We didn't discuss the gender thing. And in his ideas, the perfection can take place both amongst men and women. And he believed that, women were more compassionate, men were a bit more rough, but through their intellectual, spiritual work, they could achieve perfection. And women could become an equal partners in the public life. And this is something which he said hundreds of years ago. You know, when we talk about gender equality, when we talk about gender rights, here is a philosopher who believes that there is equality, though there are different temperaments or whatever, of men and women, but they both are equal in terms of their excellence in their own ways. Second thing I want to mention is that this intellectual relationship, I think, is very important, because my concern is that the think tanks, we've got lots of think tanks in Islamabad and everywhere, they mostly, they're doing a good job, I'm not being negative, but I think they only focus on geopolitical issues. And I think people-to-people relationship and cultural relationship, historical relationship, or similar problems that I think we need to diversify. And number three, during my visits to Central Asia and many other places like Turkey, Iran, something which fascinated me was that women are playing a very important role, not only in the universities, but in public life. And this is where countries like Pakistan, countries like Afghanistan could learn from Central Asia, where women are safe, where women are very visible, and there's no big violence against women, whether you go to Kazakhstan or you go to Uzbekistan or you go
many part of the world that are practicing. We can learn from them. Of course, Pakistan is also learning. Pakistan is growing, and recently many various unconventional level of different parts of job descriptions, and I hope that we'll continue learning from each other. And thank you so much everyone for this webinar, being part of this webinar. I would like to request one thing. I will for the first time I'm doing it, so I would like to request each one of you to open your videos so that we can take a from so that I can everyone. So let us do that. So everyone, you need to open your video so that we can take a big group photo of everyone. Sometimes it also happens that people are in your pajamas. However, we can
just show your faces.
Yes, we can do that. Everyone who is there, you can show your, so that we can take a good group photo of everyone. Yes. So let me ask few more people if you can all hear me. Okay. Let me take a group photo of everyone. There you are. Big smile, everyone. So those who could not open their videos, I would request them to open their videos so that we can see you, we can hear you as well. We can take a group photo so that we can remember this time together, everyone. So let me do that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Excellent.
Thank you too.
So I'm formally ending this webinar, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye. Goodbye.
And Qazi Saab will be sharing the email addresses of the Kazakh participants as well.